Oh, and 150. Oh, and 150. Oh, and 150. Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you here. A Degenerate Friday edition of Defo on 5. Jeff DeForest and one Mike Lubie Lubitz. And you look a little pale there, Lubie. I don't know. When is the color going to return to your face? You're like Jimmy Butler. Are you confident
I'm not
this
confident.
thing is over? Oh, and 150. That
Worried.
was ugly last night. It really was right from the start. Punched in the face. That was the old Mike Tyson theory, right? Everybody has a game plan, and it's great until you get that first sock in the face. And then everything changes. And that's pretty much what happened last night. I mean, that was never a game last night, except at the very end, it became very dicey for a lot of people that were laying 8.5 with the Boston Celtics. I think it even got to 9.5. I think Charles Barkley might have had like $250,000 on that. Is that what they implied on the TNT show? Because he was going nuts, and you needed some pasty white scrub to make a three after a series of just, errant bricks were hoisted up there by the Boston Celtics. I mean, who all wanted to make the box score there at the end of the game. And the Heat go down. Now, they were down as much as 24, end up losing by 13. Now 3-2 in a series. And suddenly, are you sensing a seismic momentum shift, Mike Lubie Lubitz? You seem to be more confident than I would expect of you because you're usually the one that is laced with paranoia on these kind of issues. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine. I'm not confident. I'm not concerned. I just don't know what they're doing. I don't like. They sound like
pumpkin time. It looked like that whole Cinderella ride might have hit a wall at 3-0.
I don't think that's for it either. And I don't. And it's again. And I give the Celtics all the credit in the world for taking advantage of whatever that was the Heat put out there. I'm sorry, it wasn't the Celtics. And actually, the press is right. It's literally all about the Celtics all the time. And it's the weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen on a broadcast. But like even when the Heat were down by a lot, they would throw little Heat tidbits, but it was always about the Celtics. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, the Celtics are ball pressure. No, that's not true. The Celtics have played the same goddamn defense the whole series. The Heat were moving around. The Heat were moving the ball. The Heat were getting to the basket. The Heat were hitting open shots. They're doing none of that now. Oh, and the Heat were not just handing the ball. The Heat would have 3 turnovers and a half, not 10. like the Celtics haven't done anything different. They actually, what they've done is gone smaller, which plays right into the hands of the Heat.
They're shooting the ball better, you would have to say.
They're shooting it way better. The Heat are also not defending. I mean, it's abysmal. And look, the Celtics again.
That's 6 straight quarters, though, of annihilation, if you want to go by the Missoula principle.
Yeah.
6 straight quarters, my friend.
Yes.
And he chimes in with, a classic piece of analysis in today's NBA, which is live and die by the three. The Celtics were way off in that category, and all of a sudden they're hitting at about 40%, which if you check the stats and the analytics and the sabermetrics, whenever they do something around that number, I don't know that they're invincible, but they're pretty damn good. And the Heat, all of a sudden, literally can't throw a beach ball into the ocean off the Dania Pier. Although, it wasn't a total washout for everybody in that game, but the guys that you expected to come to the table. Again, you had Jimmy Butler in sort of offensive la-la land for most of the game. And what's up with Spo throwing in the towel? I don't know that I like waving the white flag like that. 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. It's an NBA game. There is the three-point stripe. There's always a chance that the Celtics go cold. Why are your starters all on the bench conceding the contest? That struck me as being very, very odd. Celtic starters were still in the game, and the Heat guys were all on the bench at that point. Yeah, very strange. And look, they did close it. They almost got inside of 10 points at the end of the game. Who's to say that if they left their starters in there and they fought and made it look like at least the appearance that they were thinking that they could pull this one out of the fire, which they have come back from big deficits against Boston in the first couple of games. Why would you just concede at that point? That was a little strange to me on the part of Eric Spoelstra.
I stopped watching. I wanted to go fourth. I'm not gonna lie. They put no fight. Like you can again, and I was telling people this on Twitter. Like I haven't written off games at all. In the first 6 minutes of that game, I wrote it off. Like I knew, okay, yeah, they're looking.
You might not have gotten by the first 3 minutes of the game. It was incredibly bad.
Game 6. I'm like, I don't know why. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying, yeah, it's done. Like Butler, It's weird to say this. I hope he's hurt because I don't. Otherwise, I have no explanation for what the fuck's going on with him. Like on both ends, he's useless. And again, it doesn't write off all he's done in the playoffs. I'm not saying he's not a great player and playoff Jimmy, but
He's gone from being in the conversation as among the best in the NBA, among the most elite players, and now categorized by Mike Lubie Lubitz as useless, which he was a non-factor in that game. You would have to concede that point to you. Butler, 14 points. Bam Adebayo, 16 points. Spent the fourth quarter pretty much on the bench. So only played 3/4 of the game, but relatively ineffective through the first 3/4 of that ball game. No,
I mean, all they were doing was like anytime they got any kind of a run going, Jimmy, and this is Jimmy had like 3 turnovers that were fucking stupid. And it was like, he doesn't do that. Like, he had open layups bricking. He had and ones right at the rim bricking. He wasn't making his jumper. And he was like sort of about it, And it's like, okay. I mean, if he's like that, they have no shot. Like, I'd rest him too. I would sit him. You're going to have a game 6. They weren't winning that game. Like, you could tell they weren't winning that game. If I was Spoelstra, I was like, look, I'd take him out. I stopped watching. I was watching Vegas and Dallas. Like, there was no reason to watch that game. They made and every time they'd have some kind of, okay, it's down to 12. Their defense would go, all right, Grant, enjoy your 3, Grant. All right, Derek. Look, the Celtics, even in that game, if they got out to 3, the Celtics didn't hit it. Out of the, 73 is the Celtics shot. I think 80% were wide open. They're going to make them if they're wide. Like, Butler said it after. Oh, yeah, I'm not concerned. Our defense sucked. Really? Okay. Why did it suck?
Seems like a strange approach. I mean, especially since you had an opportunity to close them out in game 4. Kind of, and we're in an excellent position to do that. I mean, all they had to do is keep the pressure on. They were up 9 points in the third quarter. Could it happen, Lubie? 150. Now, Denver made it 150 when they clinched and ended up sweeping the Lakers in 4. They could have taken that game to 7. I mean, that series to 7, and they still would have had that stat if they had closed it out in Denver in Game 7. But they made short work of the Los Angeles Lakers, and now it turns out LeBron James possibly needs foot surgery. So if you factor that into the season that he was hurting for like half the year in need of surgical repair, even more amazing in terms of adding to the legacy. I happen to be watching, I guess, ESPN when they had no game on against TNT the other night, was replaying the Michael Jordan series. You're watching that and thinking, okay, that guy was pretty tough, Michael Jordan. When you go back and you look at The Last Dance, and came through in a clutch a zillion times, including the flu game against the Utah Jazz, which was featured in the episode that I was seeing the other night. And you're looking at this guy schwitzing like Moses Malone and Patrick Ewing combined. And you're thinking, wow, a guy that could put on a performance like that under these circumstances. I think he had like 38 in the game. Remember? I mean, have you ever seen so much schwitz on a man in your life, Lubie? Incredible, and you could tell that there was something badly wrong with him. I mean, still to this day, the theory is that somebody tainted a pizza that was delivered to the hotel room there in Utah. Was that also, isn't Utah a place where they have the haunted hotel? Were they staying there as well, the Lakers, during that? That was like late 90s. But I mean, if you look at that performance by Michael Jordan, notwithstanding, if you think about what LeBron James did at 38 years old, after 20 years in the league and in need of surgery, pretty tough, I mean, to exclude him from at least being 1 and 1A in terms of the greatest of all time. But that's another story. This one, I don't know how it ends, Lubie, but let's hope it doesn't end tragically if you're a Miami Heat fan, because it's certainly trending in that direction. That the Miami Heat are going to have to be all in on Game 6, or it's going to be sayonara time. And then they become that 1 in 151 that blew a 3-game lead in an NBA playoff series. I don't know that I want that distinction if I'm the Miami Heat. What a horrible way that would be to end this Cinderella ride.
I don't know if we're going there. That's the thing, that I'm not using the word concern because it's not.
You're not running scared. I like that about you, Lubie. That's very unusual for you. You usually would be already conceding that and handicapping with me today the Boston-Denver series.
Well, because it was an effort thing, and look, it's inexplicable. And I'm not saying
what could account for no effort in a game where you have a chance to go to the finals of the NBA championship run?
I'm not saying it didn't have to do with the Celtics were hitting shots. The Celtics were actually giving a shit. And I'm not saying that didn't affect the Heat's play. But what I'm saying, usually when that happens, the Heat get riled up and something in them makes them push back. They cut it to 12. It was the third quarter. Spoelstra is starting. I saw him yelling and screaming, clapping for them to play defense. Usually, when they want to really get into it defensively, they're up the guy's ass. You're watching, and all 5 guys are not only off their guy, they're off by 2 or 3 feet. And I'm like, I don't know.
Very lackadaisical, yes.
Like I'm maybe they're scared, but even if you're scared, you being off the guy isn't helping them. They were giving Reggie. It's the one smart thing Reggie Miller said. He's like, look, if you're exposure, you're going to concede the threes or the inside. You can't concede both, and that's what the problem was. They were giving them open threes, and then if they get past the first guy, Bam has lost so much trade value because like. The Bam defenders bother me. I know he plays good defense and rebounds and is active, but he's not that all the time. And his offense is so fucking in here or there. Being a turnover machine as a big makes 0 sense because why are you even dribbling it? Like him dribbling it in the paint makes no sense. And he only does that when he's like lost. And like it just, I am not concerned. I'm confused. I don't.
You would have thought that was the Wizards out there playing the Celtics.
Yeah, it was weird. It was
during
just
a regular season in Boston, having already gone out on the town the night before. Very strange. Now, I mean, we had the Jimmy Butler guarantee.
Yeah,
guarantees are going to close out the series. So is that the Joe Willie guarantee, which was the one and only, in my opinion, guarantee ever in the history of sports? And of course, he made good on that in Super Bowl III. Or was that Patrick Ewing guaranteeing a victory for the New York Knicks, which they would subsequently go out and get clobbered in those games? We shall see. It certainly makes for an interesting Saturday night, does it not? If you're a Miami Heat fan, you'd have to be all in. It would be so deflating if they somehow lost that game. Everybody is expecting some kind of a very tight tussle. If you're the Celtics, you naturally have to gear yourself up for the idea that you're not going to see this same lack of intensity on the part of the Miami Heat in a Game 6 at home where they're literally trying to this is about staving off embarrassment at this point. Not only making it to the final round, but you can't possibly let yourself be that 1 in 151, the first team ever, the only team ever in NBA history.
No. I mean, and you were up not only up 3-0, you were up 3-0 in dominant fashion. They had
dominant. There was no sign of life from the Celtics.
Yeah, like not only in Game 3 when they sat their guys for a whole quarter, which I've never seen, but in Game 4, you were up in the third quarter, so you had total control and. Nothing changed except for you and your effort. Like you could see last night that Jimmy Butler literally that's why I'm not concerned. I'm confused. Jimmy Butler looked like, and it's like, and I've said this for 4 years. I don't know why he and the team do that, but they do. It's good. No, if you're the Heat, you've now ceded momentum. You've now ceded the upper hand. You've now ceded the power in the series, which you never want to do, but they do it. I don't know if it's that they're not good enough, so they can only do it for so long. I don't know. I don't have an answer. But Spoelstra didn't look like he wasn't concerned. Spoelstra looked fucking pissed. Spoelstra looked like, come on, guys. You're doing this now.
Thank God, though, for the Celtic fans and the backers that's pasty scrub hit that 1-3 late in the game and opened it up to 13. That was whittling its way to the point where, can you imagine if you were laying 8.5 or 9.5 or whatever the final line was or a number that you got the Celtics at, which I mean was a very generous offering of points on the Heat. I would have been. We talked about. I thought maybe the Heat. I didn't expect them to win this game. It was one time I was right out of the last 10 games we've given you. But I thought, wow, 8.5 points is a very generous allotment. You'd be tempted to at least take the points with the Miami Heat and figure they make it close. But if ever there was a game that you didn't deserve to win in terms of covering a point spread, it was the Heat last night, no matter how many points that you were getting, because, it was just a blowout. I mean, it was 24 points, the differential late in the ball game, and no sign that the Miami Heat were going to make any kind of comeback. We know that by the time that maybe Boston took its, foot off the gas pedal, that you might see these games as NBA games sometimes deteriorate into a scrub fest where, one team scrubs happen to be hitting and the other team is just trying to kill the clock as long as it can and hoists up a distant 3 with like a half a second to go on the shot clock. But meanwhile, you're looking at segments and saying with 2.5 minutes to go in a game, that there are only, a handful of possessions left. So all you have to do is kill this clock. But wow, I mean, the Heat actually had a shot to get inside the number there. I would have slit my wrists if I bet the Boston Celtics and they lost to the spread in that ballgame. I literally never mind gargling with motor oil. I mean, a Dilaudid drip would not have been enough to sedate me after losing that game. But anyway, so it's on, Lubie. Game 6 here Saturday night, and the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics will tangle again with the Celtics still backed up against the proverbial wall, but the wall is all of a sudden a couple of bricks are starting to show signs of maybe some water damage or whatever. The Heat are definitely taking on a little bit of water in the series because that did not look good, and that's 6 straight quarters of dominance
Yep.
by the Boston Celtics. I think that's one thing that you have to look at. Denver awaits in the distance,
Look,
and they have to be kind of salivating from what they're seeing so far.
I think they would own either of these teams. I don't. I think it could go as long as 6 games, but I don't think either of these teams would win a title. I just don't. But that doesn't mean you don't want to get there, and that doesn't mean you don't want a shot.
You want the shot for sure.
What's funny is, and it's why I said I don't know the last couple of games, because I sort of did know, but I didn't want to say it out loud because I am a crazy fan. Like when I did the math, it was like, okay, no, even what we saw in game 3, are the Celtics really going to get swept? I didn't see that. Then it was like, okay, are this like the Panthers versus the Bruins? When it was like, are the Panthers really going to lose all 3 games at home? And that's when the series turned. And I was like, are the Celtics really going to lose? I don't care what their home record is the last 2 years in the playoffs. Are they really going to lose all 3 games at home? So I saw game 6 probably happening in my head. I didn't want to say it out loud.
I think a lot of people did. I don't think you're alone in that.
And I wasn't scared about it. My issue
the
with
fashion in which the Heat lost, though, was a little bit disturbing. You would have to say it at least opens the crack of the possibility, and a little bit of light seeps through there that Boston may well be, still alive in the series. Obviously, most people would think the Heat's chances are all contingent on this game 6. The truth is, I mean, they would still have a game 7 and a shot on the Celtics' home wood, where the Celtics haven't been all that great. But I would imagine, like anybody else, that if the Celtics somehow prevail and carry it to a game 7,
you're not going to have lost 3 in a row and go to their house. This is it. This is the
game. Especially if it's the style of beating that we've seen in the last 6 quarters of this series. All right, that was that. The Stars did come back in overtime and beat the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So we'll hold off on those reservations for Vegas right now. I don't see the Stars coming back and winning the series. It seems impossible that they would win 4 games in a row. That has been a very tightly contested series, except for that one game in Dallas. Game 3 was a blowout in favor of the Vegas Golden Knights. They got up 3-0 early and ended up winning 4-0. But other than that, I mean, you had the Stars lose 2 overtime games to open up the series in Las Vegas. And then they go to overtime in 3 of the 4 games. And the Stars finally got one to go home. And Peter DeBoer, I mean, he had a sick look on his face the entire game, although held up pretty well during the those hockey coaches are probably the best in terms of the in-game interview. Because they interview them while like pucks are flying past their face and sticks are hitting guys in the eyeball, and the guy very calmly stands there, whether it's Paul Maurice or any of the coaches, DeBoer in this case with Dallas, and I like our energy and I think we're playing well, and they're thinking, get this chick out of my face. I don't care how good looking you are, sweetheart. I mean, and not to diminish the value of the in-game reporter, because we certainly have great respect for that and reverence for it. With our longtime relationship with the lovely and talented one, the woman who pioneered all of this. And I think these, people do a good job, but, I mean, it does seem awkward. And yet the hockey coaches just capitulate to the situation and are very gracious about giving, an actual worthwhile comment or two to somebody as the action is taking place. DeBoer looked a little sick, though. Expressed his confidence. He thought the team was playing well. Certainly no disgrace. Very much like the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, you're losing every game in the series, and yet you're right there knocking on the door. So do we hold off on the reservations, or do we still think that it's going to be Vegas and the Panthers? Well, we know it's going to be the Panthers. That's the good thing. We don't know at this point about the Miami Heat. Marlins, a weird game yesterday. Did you catch any of this, Lubie? I caught the end of this game. They go down 6-2 going to the 9th inning. And then Soler, Sarni's man, Jorge Soler, who's climbing in terms of batting average and becoming like an impactful power hitter. He now has 15 home runs. He homers, cuts it to 6-4, and then Cooper comes up as a pinch hitter with 2 away, blasts a 2-run homer, 6-6. But the Marlins bullpen supposedly bolstered. Well, it was a disaster yesterday. Dylan Floro had let up 4 runs earlier to open that margin to 6-2. I mean, he just got shelled. And then this guy, is it Kauskar Brazaban?
Brazaban. That's what it is. Brazaban.
6'3", 155. Holy Felix Heredia.
Yeah, he was skinny, and it looked like
My God. And he walks the bases loaded, and then they bring in 5 infielders with 2 outfielders in some kind of weird defensive arrangement, and somehow the guy hits a chopper by the infield. Incredible. And so the Marlins lose 7-6 in Colorado to close that thing out. All right, that's it for today's edition of Defo on 5. I mean, 0-150. Is that number going to be challenged in this series?
I mean, it is now. Yeah, I mean, it's a series.
Selfishly, I was looking forward to a situation with a Game 6. I just wanted to see more games for some reason.
Yeah,
and I would like to see how the Heat respond and the whole area responds in this situation. If they're going to play like they did the last 6 quarters, then it's going to be Boston in Game 7, and we're going to be the one that's the lone entry under that slot in the record books, and maybe all time. I don't know that it happens again. It's always possible, but that would really be something. So nervous time, I think, around South Florida on Saturday night. Nervous time, my friend. See how this works out, and I'm expecting. I would imagine that game will be a close game, right to the final minutes.
It's so funny.
We'll see.
Game 6 happening. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this thing.
But when you're counting, I mean, I tell you, who looked great in that game was this guy Highsmith.
Oh, good.
He did. I mean, was that Alonzo Highsmith? This guy, we've seen him during the regular season. He was spotted some minutes at different times, but he was razor sharp in this game. Had 15 points.
Yeah, everyone else sucked.
Shot the ball very well. Went to the basket. He played with a lot of confidence. He was one of the few guys that was really into it. In the game. Ugliness elsewhere around the board. Lowry with 5 points.
What the fuck's happened?
Yeah, what happened to him, man? He was doing great.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Unbelievable. All right. Starters are on the bench 6 minutes to go, fourth quarter. And the numbers, I just keep seeing that big fat round number, that 0 and 150. And, you would hate to see your team that was writing such a wonderful story be the one that ends up challenging that and, making it possible for Boston to be the one team in NBA history to break through out of a 3-0 deficit. But we shall see. Anyway, you're not nervous, which makes me nervous.
I don't know.
I want you schwitzing and scared and pasty and white and looking like you just came off the bench as the 13th man for the Boston Celtics. I really do. But your confidence is right up there with Jimmy Butler's, and at least we have that to look forward to on Saturday night. We'll see if the Heat can pull it off and end up in the finals against Denver. All right, we'll have the Defo show coming up. That should be a lot of fun. Catch it on South Florida Live. We invite you to subscribe if you're a 5 Reasons Sports Network fan. You like what we do here, you'll love what we do there. And we'll have the professor later on with the big board, one of the highlight segments in all of the streaming world. That'll be a lot of fun. I believe the Greek is going to join us on that program as well. And later on, the Gambling Gourmet, Mike Mayo, who he's been waffling back and forth on his stuff too, huh? I mean, 1 minute he's a Panther fan, next minute he hates them. Next time, time out, he's very confident about the Heat. I couldn't even get into that track with you guys texting back and forth last night because it just didn't even seem worth making comments on that game, except, I mean, my favorite comment ever by a maitre d' given to me when I was seating a table of dentists from Encino at a fancy restaurant I was working at in L.A., and he just looks at me as he hands me the ticket, the check for their table, and says, "Such ugliness." And that's what it was. All right, we'll see you later. Thanks for tuning in to this edition for Mike Lubie Lubitz. I'm Jeff DeForest of Defo on 5.